That feeling when you know something needs to shift, maybe a habit, a process, maybe even a whole way of doing things. It can feel like trying to turn a cruise ship with a kayak paddle, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, the need for change is pretty much a constant in, well, every part of life, but actually making it happen. Um, that's the really tricky part. We often end up feeling sort of bogged down before we even really begin.
Well, this time on the deep dive, we're grabbing hold of a really insightful approach to this whole challenge. We've been digging into the work of Chip and Dan Heath, as presented by Jose Fernando Costa, and it lays out the structured three-step formula. It's designed to bring clarity and, maybe more importantly, action to the messy world of change.
Right. And our aim here isn't just to, rehash all the familiar frustrations we have with change. We really want to unpack a practical framework, one that offers concrete steps for navigating those difficulties with a real sense of purpose and direction.
Exactly. And at the heart of this framework are three key moves. First, you've got to really pin down the specific obstacle you're up against. Second, strategically apply solutions that are actually tailored to that obstacle. And third, be ready to adjust and, refine your approach as you go.
Yeah, iterate.
So let's dive straight into that foundational first step, defining the specific obstacle.
It sounds almost too straightforward, doesn't it? But it's actually remarkable how often we kind of bypass this crucial stage. We just jump headfirst into trying to fix things without a clear diagnosis.
Yeah, like grabbing a hammer when you actually need a screwdriver.
Precisely. And the source material gives us this really insightful catalog of common roadblocks, the things we run into when trying to make changes.
Oh, yeah. It's like a greatest hits of change resistance. We're talking about that fundamental disconnect where people simply don't see the problem. The classic, if it ain't broke, don't fix it thing, even when, the cracks are pretty obvious.
Or that deeply ingrained human tendency to just resist anything new, that sort of knee-jerk reaction of, we've never done it like that before, which, let's be honest, has probably stopped countless good ideas in their tracks.
Oh, definitely. Then there's the one I think, well, many of us have felt, getting stuck on analysis paralysis. You get so caught up in dissecting every possible angle, every potential outcome, that you never actually take that first step. It's almost like the fear of making a wrong move outweighs the cost of doing nothing.
Which often connects to its maybe subtler challenge.
Yeah.
When the world around us has fundamentally changed, but our habits, our routines, they're still running on the old programming.
Like autopilot.
Exactly. The environment has shifted, but our behavior hasn't caught up.
Yeah.
We need to overcome those old patterns.
And let's not forget the whole motivation piece. Sometimes it's just a general lack of enthusiasm, that kind of flat, people simply aren't motivated to change. Other times it's the siren song of procrastination, the classic, I'll change tomorrow, which somehow tomorrow never quite seems to come.
And skepticism. That can be a really stubborn one. That deep-seated belief that it will never work, often based on maybe past failures or just general pessimism.
Yeah.
That can be incredibly hard to shift.
And what about that frustrating situation where everyone seems to agree, intellectually at least, on the need for change? Like, yeah, I know what I should be doing.
Right. But I'm not doing it.
Exactly. But that understanding just doesn't translate into any actual action.
Or the belief that the resistance is somehow just part of the group. Oh, you don't know my team. They absolutely hate change. That kind of fixed mindset.
Oh, it can become a self-fulfilling prophecy, right? It stops you from even trying things that might work.
Yeah, totally. We also see that initial burst of energy just fizzle out. People were excited at first, but then we hit some rough patches and lost momentum, trying to reignite that spark after setbacks. That can feel like pushing a boulder uphill.
And let's not forget just the sheer feeling of being overwhelmed, It's too much. That sense of being swamped can just shut down any attempt to even get started. It's like looking at a 1,000-piece puzzle scattered all over the floor. Definitely. Finally, the one that probably hits home for a lot of us. Everyone seems to agree that we need to change, but nothing happens. Lots of talk, lots of head nodding, but zero actual movement.
But the really critical point here, the takeaway from this first step, is that each of these represents a fundamentally different kind of obstacle.
That's the key, isn't it?
Precisely. And getting really, really specific about which obstacle, or maybe it's a combination of them, is actually at play is absolutely crucial. Because the strategies you need to use to overcome, say, a lack of motivation, are going to be very different from the ones you need if the problem is a lack of clear direction.
It's about targeted intervention, not just throwing everything at the wall.
Exactly.
Okay, so once we've managed to really zero in on that specific obstacle, what's next? What's step 2 in this framework?
Right. Step 2 is where we move into actively addressing the obstacle by applying solutions. And the framework helpfully organizes these solutions into 6 distinct categories. You can think of them as different lenses, different ways to look at the challenge and find levers for change.
6 categories. Okay, that feels manageable. Let's walk through them. The first is engage emotion and motivation. I like how the source puts it addressing the feeling side of things. The main goal here, as I understand it, is really to build up that desire for change.
Exactly. It's about connecting with people emotionally, tapping into what actually matters to them. So tactics here might include appealing directly to emotions, maybe hope for a better future, or pride in reaching a goal, or even sometimes a sense of urgency if staying put is genuinely risky.
Making it feel important, not just rational.
Yes. And it's also about selling the dream, painting a really vivid, compelling picture of the good stuff that the change will bring.
Making it aspirational. That makes a lot of sense. The source also mentions linking the change to core values, reminding people of past wins. That's the motivating the elephant idea, right? Tapping into that emotional drive.
That's the one.
And even showing the potential downsides of not changing. Sometimes showing what you stand to lose can be, well, surprisingly powerful.
Absolutely. So, moving to the second category, provide clarity and direction. This one directly tackles the thinking side of change. Here, the main goal is just to eliminate confusion and create a clear, understandable path forward.
This feels so fundamental. I mean, if people don't get what's expected or why they're being asked to change, well, resistance is almost guaranteed, isn't it?
It really is. So tactics in this area include things like scripting the critical moves, basically, defining the key actions and behaviors really clearly in simple, unambiguous terms. No jargon.
Just tell me what to do.
Pretty much. And breaking down a big, complex change into smaller, more manageable steps is also vital here. It stops that feeling of overwhelm we mentioned earlier.
Right.
And making sure everyone understands the why behind it, all the underlying reason that's just as critical as explaining the how. If you can address that basic lack of clarity, you can often dissolve a huge chunk of what looks like resistance.
Okay, category 3 shifts focus. It's about making the change easier, shape the environment and path. The core idea here is to make the new way feel like the natural or even the obvious choice.
Think of it as reducing friction, making the desired path the path of least resistance. Tactics involve tweaking the environment. That could be the physical space, the digital tools you use, even organizational processes.
How so?
By removing obstacles that get in the way of the new behavior and adding prompts or cues that encourage it.
Ah, okay. Making the need for change visually obvious in the surroundings can also be a subtle but effective push. If the problems with the old way are staring you in the face, it's harder to ignore.
Definitely. And I really like the concept of setting up routines or action triggers, specific cues that automatically kick off the desired behavior, like when X happens, I will do Y.
Takes the decision-making out of it.
Exactly. And just making those very first steps incredibly easy can be crucial for getting that initial momentum going.
Right, okay. 4th category zooms right in on the action itself. Modify the behavior in action. The goal here is making it smaller and more habitual. This seems all about beating that initial inertia, that it's too big feeling.
Precisely. Shrinking the change, as the Heaths call it. Boiling it down to the absolute smallest possible first step, the atomic step, is a fantastic way to get started without feeling totally swamped.
So the focus becomes building those tiny new habits, which can then gradually grow and replace the old ones?
Yes. And preloading decisions, basically. Deciding in advance what you'll do in a certain situation that can save mental energy and make it less likely you'll just fall back into old patterns when you're tired or stressed.
The tip.
And sometimes, honestly, the most powerful tactic is just encouraging that very first tiny action. Just get started no matter how small it feels.
Makes sense. Okay, 5th category. Tapping into the group dynamic. Leverage social dynamics. The goal here is using social proof and accountability to help drive the change.
Yeah, we're social creatures, right?
Yeah.
We're heavily influenced by what people around us are doing. So tactics here include using social pressure or social proof, like highlighting how many people are already adopting the change. That creates that, oh, maybe I should too feeling.
Everyone's doing it?
Kind of. And making the desired behavior contagious by showcasing the successes of the early adopters That's another really smart approach. If people see it working for others like them.
They're more likely to try it themselves.
Exactly. Creating accountability partners or even making public commitments can seriously increase the chances people will follow through. And fostering connections, a sense of shared identity among those embracing the change, that builds a supportive environment.
Aligning the change with the group's identity and making it feel like this is who we are now.
Yes, that can be incredibly powerful.
Okay, finally, the sixth category. This one tackles the doubt and mindset issues. Build belief and demonstrate possibility. The aim here is countering that skepticism and cultivating a real belief that the change is actually achievable.
This feels absolutely critical for getting past that it'll never work roadblock we talked about.
Yeah.
Tactics here include finding the bright spots, actively looking for and highlighting existing examples, even small ones, where the desired change is already happening within the group or system.
Like finding positive deviance.
Exactly. Those little glimmers of success can be incredibly powerful for shifting people's mindset from impossible to, maybe.
And engineering small early wins is related, right?
Yeah.
Build momentum, provide concrete proof of progress.
Absolutely. Very effective. Fostering a growth mindset is also key here, that belief that skills aren't fixed, that we could develop and improve through effort.
Right, challenging that fixed view.
And challenging underlying assumptions, like the fundamental attribution error, that tendency to assume behavior is all about personality, when often it's heavily shaped by the situation. Recognizing that opens up possibilities for changing the situation to change the behavior.
Wow, okay. It's fascinating how these 6 categories really break down why change is hard in so many different ways. It's clearly not just logic or emotion alone.
No, it's this complex interplay.
It's this intricate mix of thinking, feeling, environment, behavior, social factors, belief. And it really seems like effective change often means pulling levers from multiple categories, doesn't it?
Absolutely. Which brings us perfectly to the third and final step in this whole formula. Iterate and adapt.
Right, because let's face it, change in the real world.
Yeah.
It rarely goes in a perfectly straight line.
Almost never. The source material really hammers this home. Change is nearly always an iterative process. If the solutions you first try aren't giving you the results you want, the first critical move is to loop back, revisit step 1.
Back to the diagnosis.
Exactly. Did you accurately pin down the real obstacle? Maybe your initial assessment was a bit off or incomplete.
That makes total sense. I mean, if you're treating the wrong symptom, the cure is not going to work no matter how good it is.
Precisely. And as we kind of touched on, don't be afraid to experiment with combining tactics from different solution categories.
Right.
Often, a multi-pronged attack is way more effective and resilient than relying on just one approach.
Mix and match based on what you're seeing.
Yeah. And maybe most importantly, this final step really highlights the need for both persistence and flexibility. Overcoming deeply set patterns or, long-held beliefs, that's not going to happen overnight.
No quick fix.
No. It takes sustained effort and, crucially, a willingness to adjust your strategies based on what you're actually learning as you go.
It's about being adaptable, isn't it? Ready to pivot, refine the plan based on the feedback, the results you're seeing on the ground.
Exactly.
Okay, so just to kind of wrap it up, this 3-step formula gives us a really practical, actionable way to approach change. First, get super clear, laser-focused on defining that specific obstacle. Second, thoughtfully pick and apply targeted solutions from those 6 key categories: emotion, clarity, environment, behavior, social, and belief. And third, be ready, be willing to continuously iterate, adapt, and refine your approach as you learn more.
It really shifts how you think about change, doesn't it? From this huge, overwhelming, kind of scary thing.
Yeah, amorphous.
To a series of more manageable steps. And that shift in perspective itself can be incredibly empowering.
Totally agree. By breaking it down like this, navigating change feels less like trying to scale Mount Everest and maybe more like tackling a series of smaller, more achievable hills.
Well put. So as you, the listener, reflect on this framework, maybe think about a specific change you're facing right now, big or small. What's one small, really clearly defined obstacle that's standing in your way?
Just one specific thing.
Yeah. And then looking at those 6 categories of solutions we talked about, the feeling, thinking, environment, behavior, social, and belief levers, which one, or maybe which tactic within one, feels like it might give you the most immediate, impactful leverage right now? That's definitely something worth mulling over.